Dillian the Body Snatcher right here. It's a champ. Big up to Sporting Icon. Subscribe. Otherwise, I might pay you guys a visit.
So Dillian Whyte, he says that Tyson Fury is running scared, much like the previous fighter in Deontay Wilder has been running scared also. And Bob Arum, he's been a bit two-faced. This is pretty much what Dillian Whyte is saying in a nutshell. In fact, we'll get straight into Dillian Whyte's statement. This is what Dillian Whyte had to say. Bob Arum's talking rubbish. If he represented me, he'd be screaming that this is the biggest travesty in the history of boxing. The 1,000 days is number one without being given a shot, whereas Tyson Fury barely scraped by the WBC number 31 ranked Otto Wallin in front of only 3,500 people, and then got gifted my mandatory position without fighting an eliminator. Never mind fighting a final eliminator. Fury won the belt of that pathetic hype job, Deontay Wilder, as his legs were too weak to carry it any longer after running from me for years, and now it looks like the two of them are in a relay. The WBC had originally agreed that the winner of Wilder Fury Part 2 had to fight me by May 2020. Wilder's now injured, and Arum's trying to delay my shot further. It's all wrong and has nothing to do with this epidemic. If he was fit to fight, then they could have a fight in July. Who cares if they don't have an audience? Big deal. Both of them have fought most of their careers with hardly any audience anyway. Didn't watch statement. Now, we can go back to front or from top to bottom. You know what? We'll go from back to front here. So, do Wilder and Fury, do they draw big crowds? No, not really. They haven't sold out an arena, even between them. I'm a massive Fury fan. And what he has done in America, bearing in mind this is a Brit in America, he's done exceptional. Especially against Wilder, who Wilder's fans don't turn up for him. Let's be honest, most of them just don't. They're armchair fans, okay? They don't support him. They just pretend that they do, just to be anti-Anthony Joshua or anti-UK. That's what a lot of them do. But he got exposed badly by Tyson Fury in the rematch. But Fury, when he fought Tom Schwartz and Otto Wallin, yes, he couldn't draw water from a well. They didn't want to turn up. But that's no surprise. And I was saying that on the lead up to both of these fights. It's no surprise that tickets ain't selling that well. Because this is a Brit going up against, first of all, a German in Tom Schwartz and then a Swedish fighter in Otto Wallin. Why would Americans who live in Las Vegas or wherever it is that they live in America want to go watch a Brit versus German or a Brit versus a Swedish guy? They're not going to do it, are they? So that was no surprise. But when he fought Deontay Wilder, it was Tyson Fury that was selling that fight. Both of those fights. He's the reason why there was 13,500 or whatever it is in the first fight. That was a bit of a flop as far as attendance goes. But in the rematch, there was, 17,000. So it's about 1,000 under full capacity, which is pretty good for either fighter in America, let's be honest. Wilder, again. I mean, he couldn't fill up a brewery, could he? He just couldn't do it, all right? So being a big ticket seller, no, neither of them are, especially in America. Although I think that if Tyson Fury fought in the UK now, he would be a big ticket seller. Previously, he never was. In fact, the rematch that he was supposed to have with Vladimir Klitschko wasn't even going halfway selling. For whatever reason, people just weren't buying it. But he's had like a whole overhaul of a character, and the way that he's bounced back, a lot of people are proud of him now. So I think if Tyson Fury was to fight Wilder in the rematch here in the UK, they could sell out a football stadium, in my opinion. I don't think it was... I mean, could it sell out Wembley? No, probably not. Probably not, because again, this is the third fight that people don't really want to see. But anyway, that is what it is. So should they just fight and get it over and done with? In some ways, yeah. Because how much money are they actually making from the crowd? I don't know. Now, as far as WBC saying that the winner of Wilder Fury Part 2 should have fought Dillian Whyte in May, so last month, is absolutely correct. That was the original order. But then, incidentally, coincidentally, accidentally on purpose probably, that Dillian Whyte had a adverse finding on his UCAS sample, which later proved that there was nothing wrong with it in the first place. Again, it's a fact. I know some people trying to hang on like he's a drug cheat and whatever. No, nothing was found. There was a query, and that's why he was cleared to fight. Now, the reason that they didn't put the May date back in, which, to be honest with you, they should never have took it out in the first place, but then changed it from May 2020 to February 2021, and then made Tyson Fury the mandatory, even though Tyson Fury had already signed to fight Deontay Wilder. So why do that? Why? So they can delay for another year a mandatory shot. That's why they've done it by another year, because The champion only has to fight one mandatory every 12 months. Not that Wilder ever done it anyway. I mean, Wilder took on 2 mandatories in 5 years. Tyson Fury being the third mandatory in 5 years and 2 months. Even though Fury should never have been a mandatory. Because again, Fury, let's be honest, he never fought a final eliminator. Never even fought an eliminator. After two and a half years, or, well, it's pretty much close to 3 years actually, since he defeated Vladimir Klitschko. He'd been out of the ring and, of course, went through what he went through. But he come back and fought Sefer Seferi, who was the number 2 rated Albanian for cruiserweight. That was his comeback fight. So there's no way that he was ranked highly in the WBC heavyweight. And Francisco Pianeta is a gatekeeper / journeyman. So there's no way that he was even ranked in the top 100 of the WBC. But then he gets a title shot against Deontay Wilder. We can look at that and say, that's unfair. And it is unfair. Of course it is unfair. But listen, everything worked out great because Tyson Fury is WBC heavyweight world champion and Wilder no longer is. For me, that's brilliant. And I'm proud of Tyson Fury. But in the reality of it, should he have got a shot at Deontay Wilder? No, because him defeating Vladimir Klitschko, that had nothing to do with the WBC. At all. Nothing to do with the WBC whatsoever. So what you don't do is take 2.5, 3 years out of the ring, fight 2 absolute bin men, and then get ranked in the top 15 so Wilder can give you a voluntary shot. In fact, they didn't do that. They ranked him number 3. Just so they can give him a world title shot. So they kind of fiddled their records and their listings just to give Fury the shot, just so they can allow Wilder Fury to go ahead. They then ordered Fury to fight Wilder in the rematch after we know, or for the rematch after the first one, because we all know that Tyson Fury got robbed in that first fight. He should have been WBC World Heavyweight Champion in Los Angeles, but got robbed, royally robbed. The WBC then ordered it. Fury went, nah, you're right, I ain't taking it. Walked away, signed a 5-fight deal with ESPN for $100 million. So again, we can say, all things considered, he done the right thing. But at the time, he did turn down the WBC's order of rematching Deontay Wilder. He then fought Tom Schwartz and Otto Wallin. Both of them foreigners, a Brit fighting foreigners. Are the Americans going to turn up? No, as we've already discussed. But either guy was not ranked in the top 30 of the WBC. But then he gets another world title shot with Deontay Wilder, and he becomes mandatory. Why did he become mandatory? So they can delay the next mandatory for another year, and therefore Dillian Whyte can no longer interfere. That's why they've done it. They sabotage is what they've done. So yeah, Tyson Fury should never be mandatory. Even Fury said, why don't you be mandatory for? I'm already fighting Wilder. We've already agreed everything, so why make me mandatory? I don't need to. Because they wanted to push Dillian Whyte out the picture to allow Wilder Fury Part 3. Didn't want Dillian Whyte getting stuck right in the middle of them, which is why they changed it from May to February. So what Dillian Whyte is talking about here is absolutely correct. Now, is Tyson Fury scared of Dillian Whyte? I don't think so. I don't think Tyson Fury is afraid of anybody. But again, you do have to question it. The fact that he did turn down the WBC on 2 occasions. He turned down the automatic rematch with Deontay Wilder. He told him to go jog on. Didn't get punished. Turned down a ordered fight against Dillian Whyte for the WBC Diamond Belt. He turned it down. He didn't get punished. So he gets awarded world title shot, whereas Dillian Whyte has been fighting eliminators and final eliminators, become the mandatory, become the WBC interim champion, but yet he's not getting a world title shot. Why is that? People say, well, because Dillian Whyte turned down Luis Ortiz for a secondary mandatory, and I'm a little bit bored of talking about that point because for whatever reason, some people can't get that through their heads. Dillian Whyte, Luis Ortiz was for secondary mandatory. Yes, Dillian Whyte, he turned him down. He told him to go jog on because it should be for mandatory, not secondary mandatory. But they made Dominic Brazil, the number 4 rated, who's never done anything except getting iced by Anthony Joshua, the mandatory. So Dillian Whyte, he went and fought Joseph Parker in that instead. So Dillian Whyte should be punished because he turned down a secondary mandatory against Luis Ortiz, even though Luis Ortiz, he never fought a final eliminator, but he fought Wilder twice. Dominic Brazil, he never fought a final eliminator, unless, of course, you want to class the Eric Molina one. Tyson Fury never fought an eliminator, let alone a final eliminator. So why is it that Dillian Whyte hasn't got his world title shot against Deontay Wilder before any of those guys, including Tyson Fury? That's his point. And Bob Arum, yes, of course, if Bob Arum was promoting Dillian Whyte, yes, of course, he'll be moaning and shouting from the rooftop that this is an absolute travesty because Dillian Whyte is actually the longest reigning number 1 in the WBC for, 100 years, I think it was I heard? For 100 years. without getting a world title shot. The longest reigning #1 without getting a world title shot for the WBC. That'll tell you something suspect. So yes, Bob Arum would be kicking off if he was promoting Dillian Whyte. Because he's not, he doesn't really care, does he? But why has Dillian Whyte not got his world title shot? Because WBC don't particularly like Eddie Hearn. That's what it is. I think if Dillian Whyte was with any other promoter, he'd got his world title shot by now. And that's unfortunate that I say that, but it is. Anyway, Dillian Whyte's statement. Drop your thoughts below. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you all in the next video.